basically your foundation is acting as a bit of a mask. I mean, we have so many different types of foundation. You can just have like BB creams or serums or thin little foundations. That's fine. They're all amazing, and they will do the same thing to varying degrees, from anything from the lightest of coverages to the fullest of coverages. But in essence, you're creating a thin filmy mask on your face so that you can smooth things out and for things to look more even, and even work your dimensions of your face with the light and the dark shadows, using depth in your coloring as far as your foundation, your contour, and your color correctors, or whatever you're doing to manipulate the light and shadow in your face. But keep in mind, it is a mask, and the biggest mistake that I do see is that people put on the foundation and then they swipe it right off. They might as well not have even done anything. So learning how to keep that foundation on but still blend it is going to be key to a successful look. And when you're trying to do more of a sheer foundation, you have to be just as skilled and detail oriented in seeing how much to pull off, and maybe have like freckles or whatnot show through. So just depending on what you're doing, you can always mix down with an oil or a cream or whatever to thin down your foundation. So just keep all that in mind. It's very pliable. Foundations are very pliable. You can change them and the texture of them just with different additives, like I said, creams or oils or anything like that. So keeping all that in mind, you want to make sure that your foundation is on and it stays on, and I'll show you how to do that. So for your assignment today, after you guys have seen all of that, what I want you to do is choose the 3 colors for each face, one slightly darker, one what you think is right on, and one slightly lighter, and palette those out onto your hand or onto a metal palette so that you can best apply the correct tones to your face. Especially important for the face not to look overly flat or ashy. So no matter what tone you are, light to dark, any color of the rainbow is fabulous. So all you want to do is just work within your tone range in a slightly lighter, dead on, and slightly darker, and make sure there's something in there that's a little warmer for anybody with darker skin or deeper skin, because anything too neutral can sometimes look ashy, and that's a no, 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 no. So keep that in mind when you're applying. Especially with darker skin tones, you want to make sure that you have multiple colors at all times. I use multiple colors always because the dimensions and the colors in the skin are different, and they require more than one color when you're applying a foundation. One just won't do it. So the deeper the tones of the face, the skin colors of the face, the more colors you're going to need, because it reacts differently to foundation and turns ashy a lot easier. So with all that in mind, we're gonna have you guys do your foundation. This is your assignment if you choose to accept it, and get your tone right and apply your foundation in the steps that you saw, and get used to doing it and see how you like it. I also want you to play with some mixing mediums, a moisturizer or an oil, put it into your foundation and see how that thins it down. See how you can make it pliable. So that's your assignment. Try a full face of foundation using the strategies that I've given you, and we're going to be doing color correcting, which is my bag I'm most well known for. So stay tuned for that tomorrow. Well, let's talk about color correcting. Welcome. This is an area that I guess my channel is the most well known for because I have severe dark circles. I will be putting in a couple of videos into this video so that you can see application techniques with the color correcting, but I want to talk you through it. So let's begin. So color correcting is essentially working with the tones of the color wheel in order to counteract different tones that could be happening in our skin that could be affecting the way that our makeup looks. And one of the worst areas is usually on very, very dark under eye circles, which is what I have. And so tones such as oranges, salmon, peach, yellow or banana, and mint color, any outstanding tones on the face and body can be distracting or create an ashy cast if the makeup is not color corrected. So if I was just to put concealer down, it gives an ashy effect, and also you get like this little darkness peeking through. So the color correcting gives that special barrier to counteract whatever purpley browny nightmare is happening underneath your eyes, like it does for me. So these can be super beneficial. The last color is like the mints and the greens. I am not a massive fan. I do include them in the line because there are people that are hardcore into it, and that is to counteract the redness that can occur, say on a pimple or, you know, rosacea or any redness. But I find I can often see the green underneath the makeup unless it's done so extraordinarily well. So I'll leave that to you. Maybe you're a master at it. I just don't like the way it looks personally, but I did include it in the Boom X Beauty line. And I'm going to show you the palette that I have, because it will cover both color correcting and the contour highlight sections of this, so it's easy to work with. But I'll show you also there's other, you can use anything like a pump or a concealer wand or a palette. There's so many different textures and you know, products to color correcting. The variety is crazy. So this product I'm going to show you is a little bit creamier, and I have been really enjoying using it, and it works really well for me. My go-to is always to put like a salmon color and then a yellow on top. I need two because that's how dark my under eye circles are, but you guys will see that in the video. Anyways, let's roll and I'll show you some more. Look, whether it is lack of sleep, genetics, or stress, under your eyes can often be hard to cover up with makeup. And so we need to figure out what's going to work best on our eyes. And so stay tuned for what I'm going to show you in terms of textures and colors that will really help to mask this. So what color corrector is, it is designed to balance out the discoloration underneath your eyes or in any spots on your face and prep it for your foundation and concealer. So it's meant to be put on your skin. So what I've done is prime my skin with an extra moisturizer here, extreme moisturizer, and primer here. And if you guys don't know boomxbeauty.com, we have a full line of skin and makeup products, and you're welcome to check that out. And definitely hit me up on a free consultation if you want some help picking out your color corrector, what's going to work best for you, and that's on the website. So how do color correctors work? Basically, color correctors, the principle behind it is that it's about the color wheel, and going opposite in tonality will help to counteract that particular color. So color correctors use complementary colors in order to balance out skin discoloration. They rely on the basics of color theory in order to complement the color that is showing through and use opposite colors that are on the color wheel, canceling each other out. So what you want to do is choose the opposite color of your dark circles to cancel out the discoloration. So typical color correctors are normally yellows and oranges to balance out purple and blue dark circles, normally. So although sometimes I look sick when I'm not, basically this is not a medical problem. It is a combination of genetics for me, and if I am tired or sleepy, they get worse. But if you do notice like a dramatic change under your eyes, you definitely should check in with your doctor, because you never know what it could be. I don't know if there's anything happening with your liver or anything. So make sure you check in with your doctor if you notice that your dark circles are getting way dramatically worse. So orange and yellow are typically the most used colors for coloring the purple, gray, and blue undertones under the eyes. But I have been seeing recently on YouTube and online, playing with some variety of different types of colors. I've obviously seen peach, but more recently I've seen just simply a darker color or matching color to that tone on Smitha Deepak's channel. I will link it below. She's an amazing YouTuber. And she was comparing the difference between using the traditional colors of color correctors and just using a deeper tone in there, and she was finding the similar results, because I thought, well, that would be an interesting experiment. So I thought, let's just try all the colors out and show you on my eyes what happens to your under eyes when you use the wrong color or use a different tone. So let's roll and do that. I'm gonna pop all the colors on my under eyes and you guys can see sort of what they each do. You guys know from my other video, if you watched it on color correctors, I tried on all of these different types of color correctors and gave you a review of each one, and I will run through those again at the end so you guys can compare some of the tones and things like that. But for now we'll use mine because I'm familiar with them and I know the texture and what they do, and I wanted to kind of explain why I have them the way that I do. And these are the pump version, just so that you know. I also have a wand version. I'll show you that. They come in this size as well, so that you guys can choose whatever is more convenient for you. I use the pump a lot, but if you just want a smaller one for personal use, it has a doe foot applicator and works really good. Okay, stay tuned to the end of the video so you can see which one I actually end up preferring. So basically what you guys are seeing on my face is a whole collage of both color correctors under the Boomex line and a whole bunch of other ones collected up with a bunch of other higher end, medium to high end lines. And I'm going to walk you through because I wanted to show you and explain a little more about the colors that we're dealing with. And I obviously have tried a lot, okay? I mean, I'm pretty desperate. You can see by my under eye circles, it's not something that is super fun to live with. So I am trying everything for myself and so that I can relate it to you guys. So let's just get back. So this mint color here is from, obviously from my line. This whole top row here is all color correctors from my line, and this is the color here. Now when you see these green or blue color correctors and you put them on somebody like me with brown, you know, ish, this you could see just by looking at it really clashes with the skin color that I have. Therefore, when you use like a green color corrector on brown, you can see the green, in my opinion, underneath, and we'll rub that in a minute. This next one is kind of like the peachiest of tones. Some people prefer peach color correctors and they can work okay, but I find that it doesn't quite cancel out for me all the way. This is the yellow color corrector, and this, you could see it's very nicely opaque. It does color correct to a certain degree, but I'll show you what I do with the yellow later. Some people do like the yellow on its own, but I do find that I need to add something with that. It's a great, great brightener. The orange is sort of the most heavy duty for color correcting. Well, I call this the salmon color. That is this one here in the line. See it? It's quite bright. For most people with fair skin, this is going to be pretty intense. If you've got, you know, browner skin or Mediterranean skin or more in your deeper tones, this orange could be your best bet. For me, I do use the orange, and I'll show you how I use it in a little bit. And then we're going to go on to this concept. This concept is actually, this is HC125. It's really a deeper concealer, but it technically can be considered a color corrector. Basically, with what this does is it's matching. You can see the darkness here. The idea behind it is it's canceling the color by being complementary and almost like similar in tone. And when I saw Smitha do this on her channel, she was showing how both the orange and the brown did absolutely similar things. And so I wanted to try that, and so we're going to do that in a little bit and see what happens. And finally on this side, it's a little bit deeper of a peach color, And I've got that one on here. Let me just find the color. What happened to it? Oh, sorry. Okay, so a lot of times people are using like a deeper peach. So that's the HC 105 in the line. And so I wanted to show you comparables in other lines. I forgot to put the Fenty on. Let me pop that Fenty dot on and I'll show you all of them. All right, so popping on to some of the more well-known color correctors. This color wheel from Lise Watier is super famous. It has been around for forever. And you guys can see the colors in there. So what I wanted to do is just pick out a couple colors just to see. So I wanted to use this tone in my line against the Lise Watier in the Beige Cafe. This is the deepest brownier tone. So you guys can see that, what color that comes out to, and that's right here in the Lise Watier line. And then I wanted to cross-reference that with the Beige Rose in the line, because this is the kind of like the most popular color corrector within this wheel. And that color corrector is supposed to take away the under eye shadows. This color here, just so you guys have it for your reference, is the Beige Peche. This is your corrector, so they're calling the beige the corrector. The Beige Cafe is the neutralizer. The beige color here hides the blue veins and under eye circles. The Beige Natural camouflages, it conceals the redness. And Beige Rose gives a radiant effect, is what they're saying, okay? So basically what I've done is I've taken two of these colors. That's the Cafe, that's the darker, whoop, this one here, the dark brown color. I actually was having a hard time seeing which one it was because it dried down so much darker. So it goes on a little bit lighter and dries down darker. That is the Beige Rose. That's this one here, and that's the one that is supposed to have a softening of the under eye shadows in this kind of like rosy tone here. So the brown and the rose are the Lise Watier, so you guys can see. So the consistency of this, though, you guys, is really thick. It is thick, and for mature under eyes, I find this very non-forgiving. So that, therefore, it's not one of my favorites. But I did want you guys to kind of experience the different colors to get a feel for what is out there for color correctors. So I don't recommend this one under mature eyes at all. Maybe if you've got younger eyes, or if you can handle really heavy, thick looking creams under, it would be okay, but it's not okay for under my eyes. Just so you guys have a frame of reference, we all know that Becca is no longer, but this is the under eye corrector. It might be, you know, reinventing itself somehow in the future, but that is the color of it. And I wanted to show it to you guys just for color reference and texture reference. So when you touch it, it's got a real wet, kind of dewy feel, as opposed to this, which is quite dry. So this is really dewy and kind of gooey is the best way to say it. It works okay, but I do find it does do a little bit of creasing on my under eyes. And we're going to continue with more. This is one that I used for quite a while. This is the Clinique. It's the Beyond Perfecting Super Concealer, and this is a corrector. And that one, I'm wondering if you guys can guess where that is on my face. I've got that one, I believe, is right here. And let me just squirt it out so I can show you on my hand. And applying it so you guys can see it going on. It's got a real thin texture to it. It gets a little confusing with all these, but you guys can see it on my hand here. It's this one dot, so you can compare it against the other oranges on the face, and it's a good orange, but it is quite thin, and I find it not opaque enough to cover the kind of doozies that I have under my eyes. So this is good, but it's very thin. You might want to try it if your under eyes are not too difficult to cover. I wonder if you guys can guess where this one is. I put it right here underneath mine because I believe this to be probably one of the most popular under eye correctors. This is the Charlotte Tilbury in medium number 2. So you guys can see basically what they've done with the tone is it's kind of like got an orangey peshy tone to it for canceling. Number 2 is kind of just a little bit deeper than my cheek skin color, but you can see as we get up into my darker under eyes, it would be actually lighter than the darkness under my eyes. So it works not bad. It doesn't pack the Supremo punch. I still get just a little bit of shadow underneath, but it is probably in the top 3. Yeah, for sure. And I'll show you the next. Okay, this one is fairly well known too. This is the Bobbi Brown color corrector in Peach. And that's what we have right underneath it here. So you could see, just for reference, the similarities. This one has a little bit more yellow and orange, in my opinion, and this is a little bit more peshy. This is the Charlotte Tilbury one. And just for your reference, you can sort of see the tone differences on the color corrector so that you can know maybe what's going to work best up for your eyes. Okay, just a couple more. This is what I said was probably my favorite the last time. It's a real mess, isn't it? I'll just clean that up a little bit. Okay, this medium tan in the Tarte was what I was saying is probably my best. It has a bit more of a thicker consistency, and you guys can see it here in this dot. And looking at it, you see how it doesn't quite dry down. It sort of stays really dewy and wet like that, like creamy. That's fine, but it can get just slightly gummy. But for coverage, this is a little bit more opaque, and you can see for tone, as far as tone is concerned, it's got kind of similar vibes to the Charlotte Tilbury medium, those 2 tones. So these 2 tones work fairly good on under my eyes, but yeah, just a little bit with the texture, right? And then let's just go for this kind of bright orange here, which was actually a bit of a mistake on my part. This is the Fenty. It's in the pumpkin color 13. I was going for some orange to try to cancel it out, but this orange is kind of like a burnt brownie orange, and it did not work. It was too intense under my eyes, just for your reference, but just so you can see the color when you're trying to choose for yourself and pick your colors. So I am going to rub some of these in, and then I want to show you what I do, what my final favorite is, so that you guys can see what it does. All right, let's get into rubbing some of these in and showing you what it does. So this has been drying down now for at least a half an hour, I'm sure, but just to show you sort of the texture and, you know, play of movement that you get. But I wanted to show you this, and you could see it going on top of my age spot right there. If you put a green down, and then if you wanted to put foundation or concealer over that, a lot of times I find you can see how it makes your skin look kind of dead, where if you've already got brown and, you know, tones underneath, and you put a green, like a minty color on top of that, how it kind of makes your skin look really, really ashy and dead. So what you want to try to do when you've got that depth is avoid the ash. The ash is a no good. So trying to figure out what's going to work is a little bit of a play. You have to experiment. So going in with this is one of the more peshy tones. What this is going to be good for, guys, is if you've got really, really intense redness. Mint is good to complement redness. So use the green in very sparing amounts. If you've got, say, rosacea or some redness that you need to cover, that will cancel that out. But it does not do well for dark under eye circles. And let's just go into this next tone here. This is the kind of peachiest. This is the HC103 within the line, and that is the code. I will try to you know, list everything for you below. So this is like a really peachy tone here, and it's okay. It does do canceling, but what I find with when I just use the peach is I still get this little bit of, I don't know if you guys can see, this gray undercast underneath it. So while it's good in a pinch to do a real quick corrector job, it isn't like a complete job for me. If you've got very dark under eye circles, it doesn't really do the job. So now going into the yellow, let's show you what the yellow does. Okay, so again, this is sort of dried down, so it's got a little bit of maneuverability even though it is dried down just by dabbling on it. And what I do love about these correctors is you could see, I'm just going to come up close so you can see my wrinkles and stuff. You could see how it's very forgiving and sort of blurs the lines a little bit when I smile. It's so good for that. And when I was figuring out what to do for a color corrector, I really wanted something for mature women who can wear something like this and not feel like it's actually adding to their lines. And I'm concerned about it. I'm sure anybody who's getting lines under there is probably concerned about it as well. And I didn't like when it collected into the lines and got really gummy. And so when I was choosing textures, I wanted something that was thin enough to spread but opaque enough to sit. And I think I achieved that. So while I like the brightening effect of the yellow, I don't like how it doesn't cancel out the very deepest of colors. So as I'll show you what I end up coming up with, this is the orange. The orange does do a really good job of canceling. The canceling power is real, you guys. It really does do a great job. And when I apply layers over top, it does an amazing job. However, I find it doesn't brighten enough. So basically what I do now as my secondary step is I do the orange to cancel. Then I put the yellow to brighten on top of the orange, and then I just kind of give it a minute to settle. And then I get the effects of the cancel and the effects of the brighten, and the two together are amazing for being able to cancel out the shadow that I always get underneath that cast, that ashy cast. And I have no problem with ashiness because both of these colors are so warm. They cancel out the ashiness that the dark creates. Now, in terms of going darker, this is sort of what Smitha was talking about earlier this week on one of her videos, is she was using like a brownie tone and in essence sort of almost matching the darkness. And basically what she claims is it does the same as what the orangier tone does. Personally, again, I find that it does cancel to a certain degree. She's right there, but I find that it doesn't do the additional brightening that I need, so that is a problem. So again, when we go to just the straight kind of like peachy tone that we were talking about a little earlier, but like a brighter peachy tone, I got to get my mirror here so I can see what I'm doing. Again, this tone is sort of more similar to like the really popular colors. I've got this way off the side. Let me just add a little bit in because it's looking sort of dark and faded out. This color works really good as my on top concealer color if I wanted to like add even an additional bit of pesh. But again, I find I really need the dramatic orange and yellow to cancel me out. Because again, I get just even still, just with the darkness, the dramatic darkness that I have, with cancel color, the peach is okay, but it does still give me that little bit of dark undercast underneath. If you don't have really dramatic under eye dark circles, the peach is probably going to be enough, just going peachier in tone. But for me, again, I need those layers. Let's move on to the other different types of, correctors and so forth. So when we talked about Liz Wautier earlier, I was explaining to you guys that I didn't like how it was drying. So this one here is a Liz Wautier, that peshy color, and it's like thick. It's hard to move. It's hard to spread, and you guys can see when something is really hard to move and hard to spread like that, if you put that in the delicate under eyes, it really does accentuate them, so I don't love it. So going into this one here, this is the one of the all-time favorites. This is the color corrector in medium. it does a pretty good job, but again, the texture I find to be fairly forgiving. It's hydrating to a certain degree, but again, it's a little bit showing through still, just because the opaqueness isn't quite what I personally need. For most people though, it will probably be enough, but for me, it just, when I put it under here, I get this dark gray cast right underneath my eyes. Again, this is the Lise Watier just showing me blended out. You can see it's been sitting, it's really, really thick and gummy, and it gets patchy at times. You guys can see when I move it around how it kind of can patch out a little bit, and so for that reason it's not my favorite. So this was super popular, the Becca under eye one, and I do like it for brightening. It is a good brightener, but again, it's very, very gummy and moist, and sometimes it can settle into lines. So the Becca under eye corrector, that is good, but it's not the ultimate for me. Okay, going into this Fenty one. This Fenty one was quite a nightmare. You guys can see how it dries. It dries down and it's quite patchy. Yeah, it doesn't look nice at all under my eyes. I didn't like it at all. I used it once and once only because it was simply a nightmare. So I don't recommend that one. All right, we're going to go on to the Bobbi Brown one. This is a corrector, and I also had trouble with this, just aging my eyes a little bit underneath. It has more of a little bit more of orange undertones inside of it, with a little bit of pesh. It's not bad, but I do find that it does highlight the lines a little bit. So it's up there, but it's not perfect. It's for sure needs maybe a little bit more work. And let's go to the final one. So this final one here is the Clinique one, and that one's the one I told you is a little bit thinner. I'm just going to rub it in so I can show you guys. It is fairly forgiving underneath the eyes. I just have a heck of a time having it cover. I've got a really solid dot right here, but underneath my eyes I find that after it dries down and my natural kind of veins and stuff come through, I can still see, some of my gray cast underneath, and so yeah, it's not the greatest anymore. It was really good at first when I had no color corrector, but over time. And this is the Tarte one. I honestly, you guys, I'm losing track of where I put it, but I'm going to show it to you here again. This is the Tarte one for color correction, and this is the one that I said was my favorite. I'm going to just put this right here in the middle of these two to show you the difference in color. So again, it is got that pesh undertone to it, a little bit peachy orange, like a peachy orange color. And this again is in medium tan, and it does some work for color correction, but I do find that I need just that little bit more, the orange base, then the brightening on top, and then I continue on with my concealer. And so what I would do from here is I would put my foundation on, and that will additionally cover a little bit more, and then on top of that I would put the concealer, and that would be my final conceal. And yeah, I find that that has been working the absolute best for me as far as not getting a cast underneath my eyes. And make sure you subscribe, and I'll show you guys a full face and how that all works out for me. But I wanted to go through, I had so many requests. I know there's other color correctors out there. These are just, all of the middle to higher end ones that I have. There's a whole bunch more that I have that are drugstore. If you guys want to see me do comparisons with the drugstore colors, let me know and I can do that. But for now, I am super excited to make this my magic combo, where I've got the orange as my base, the yellow on top to brighten, and then the concealer after I put my foundation on. And I get a pretty, I think, amazing coverage without having to have all of that accentuating in the lines. And as you guys can see, no matter what color I put on, even though I put a ton down, when it comes to looking at the yellow one, for example, you could see it's not collecting in the lines, and I really packed it in. Whereas this one, where I put a streak of the Tarte, it's still really slippery and it is collecting a little bit more in the lines. And that's important to me. I don't want it to add to my, I know I'm getting older, but I don't want it to add. So I just wanted to give you guys that for some help in case you've got really dark circles like me and you're trying to figure out what to do. So yeah, I would suggest, if it was me, to do something orangier to start with, or orangier peach, and then top that off with something brightening and then go forward. And you should be able to get rid of that ashy cast. If you've got darker skin tones, deep skin tones, you might just stick with the orange, and then a really nice solid concealer color that's a few, shade or two lighter than your natural skin to give you a bit of a brightening and a highlight, and that should work fine for you guys. So just understand that you need to experiment with texture. When you have more mature eyes, using a thicker, creamier texture can sometimes make it look, depending on the ingredients and depending on the product, make it look crepier if they're more mature under the eyes. So it's going to depend on age, skin texture, things like that. It's probably good to have a couple of options within your kit or within your supplies for whatever you're trying to do. So you can actually apply your color corrector before or after your foundation. I tend to do it before my foundation, but sometimes I forget to do it, and then I go ahead and put it on after. So there's not a tried and true rule to that one. So use your discernment there and whatever your personal preference is, because either will work. Just remember, in terms of tone, that the peaches and the oranges and the yellows, they tend to help more with the purple and the dark circles. The yellow can also help with this as far as the brightening effect after you put the orange down. And like, I've had a lot of questions about, I've got some sunspots from being out a lot in the summertime, and I didn't color correct this today, and you can see it peeking through. But if I was to put a little bit of color corrector on, we'll just do a little bit right now just to show you. This is a salmon color. You can put a little bit of that down, put a little bit more. And see, it's even over my makeup. I can dabble over and then put a little bit of concealer on top, and it will help to camouflage anything like that. You can see it's already kind of killing that brown spot a bit by using this salmon, and then you can go over that with a little bit of regular colored concealer, and then top that off, and then whoop, that concealer is kind of light, but you get the gist. And then you can put a dabble of powder if you want to on top of that. So I'm not really applying, I'm just showing you the concept behind it. And it can take away, it's much more subtle now. It can take away that age spot as well if you run into that. So keep in mind that color correcting can also help with brown spots and those kinds of things. So I was talking to you guys about the contour and corrector palette. I absolutely love, I do say so myself, I love this palette so much. And I'm cracking this open now because I need a new one. I've used up my whole other one. And this top row here is your color corrector. So you've got your salmony color, your yellow color, and your mint color here. And you can just work across the palette to get your needs met. And using a little bit of a brush, like a brush that's shaped kind of not too large, something like this is good, and you can go under the eyes and apply it, or whatever is seemingly comfortable for you is fine. You can use your finger and a sponge afterwards, whatever works. I've done it all the ways, and play with your own personal preference and style and see what's going to work for you. If you're trying to color correct something on the body, I really recommend using a thicker, heavier product. Like, definitely get into the creamier tones, because those tones are heavier and they do a better job of covering like anything on the body. So if you've got something offensive, we'll just take a freckle like that, and it's a creamier substance. It's better than a liquid, because I just find that it's got more sticking power and it can control. There's even a bruise there, I think. Yeah, I can feel it when I touch it. It can control the color a little bit more, and it's got more sticking power. So if you've got to do anything on the body, then definitely take a look at creamier color correctors, and then you can always find the right concealer tone or foundation tone, and then powder. in order to finalize that brown spot or whatever offending spot you're trying to cover. Well, you made it through color correcting, you guys. Hopefully the demos were good and you got a good feel. This was an in-depth video. Using color correctors, orange, your assignment, if you choose to accept it, using color correctors orange, yellow, peach, and mint. Experiment applying orange over darkness, yellow to correct and brighten, peach to neutralize darkness, and mint to counteract redness. Try covering dark circles, pimples, and scars using these techniques. Try this on yourself, and if you can, try it on a couple other people to see how these techniques can make a difference in discoloration, and then follow up. It's a really good idea even to see it on half your face, just so you can see the difference of what the color corrector actually did, if you're curious to see the difference that it makes. So thank you guys for joining me for color correction, and we are going to be moving to video 18, concealer, tomorrow. We'll see you there.